Alright guys, so today we're going to be working on something a little bit different. Instead of working on high school, I'm going to be doing a video on middle school questions. So I got it recommended to me, so I think I'll just dive right into it. So today we'll be going over page 1 and the first 10 questions on the middle school calculator test. And in addition, we'll also be going over the basics of the HP35 calculator right here. So first thing you're going to need to do is when you first get your calculator, it's going to be off, right? So it'll come up blank like this. So the first thing you're going to need to do, obviously, is to turn it on, and so you have your calculator on. In addition to this, you will also need to know how to put your calculator into the scientific 2 method. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to hit yellow shift and then left, and you pull up this screen, and then you hit 2 for science, and then 2 for science 2, and then you're in there. So whenever you get into your calculator, just make sure that you're in this science 2 form, and then you're ready to roll. Another thing that helps is to have your calculator have its memory cleared before you begin the exam, right? So maybe 5 minutes before the test, you need to clear your memory. And you do that by pushing this button, and this button all at the same time. Now, that's kind of hard to remember, but the way you can do it is you put your thumb right here on the on button, and then you stretch your middle finger all the way over to this mode button, and then you stretch your index finger all the way to this R/S button. And then with your hand in kind of this claw method, you push all 3 buttons at the same time. And then, if it does it correctly, it should pop up memory clear. Unfortunately, because this is a digital calculator, I can't press all 3 buttons at the same time. So I can't show you what that looks like, but you press this on button with your thumb, the mode button with your middle finger, and then this R/S button with your index finger. All right, so now that you know how to set your calculator into Science 2, and you know how to use the memory clear, let's get into the actual doing of these questions. Now, for this question number 1, you actually know how to do this, right? You take this number and you subtract this much from it, right? But how do you use your calculator to do that? In normal calculations, with every other calculator you've used before, you do 955 minus 1070, right? But that gets you not the right answer. This is 1.07 times 10 to the third. This is not the correct answer. So what you need to do is, I'll just back out of that. You need to take your first number and hit enter, and then take your second number and then do your minus, okay? So what this is gonna look like is you do 955 enter, 1070 minus, and then there is your answer. So you would write negative 1.15. Now you need to not write an E here. On your calculator it says E, right? But if you write an E, it will be counted wrong. You're not allowed to write it. So on our paper we will write times 10 to the power of 2. Now this E just represents this times 10. So when writing your equation, you just swap out the times 10 to the instead of this E value, and you put your 2 up there as like a little exponent. Make sure that your 2 is up in the top right of your times 10. All right? So that is how you do the first question, and let's move on to the next one. All right, so for this question, we've got something a little bit different, right? Instead of having 2 terms, we've got 3. We've got this 22, we've got this 16, and we've got this 57, right? So all in all, our method is basically the same thing. All we're gonna do is we're gonna go 22, enter, 16 minus, and then 57 minus. So in this case, we took our first number and hit enter, our second number and hit minus, and then we took our third number and hit minus as well, right? Because we're subtracting 16, because it says minus 16, and then we're subtracting 57 as well, so we're subtracting 57 on our calculator. So our answer would be negative 5.10 times 10 to the power of 1. And that would be our answer for this question. All right, number 3 is very similar to the first two, but there is a little bit of a catch for this one. You got to learn a new button for this one. So what you got to do on this one is you take your first value and hit enter, right? You take your second value, hit plus, and then you take your third value and hit plus as well, right? So let's go and do that. So we do 27.8. Wait a second, it's not 27.8, it's negative 27.8. The way you get that negative in there is you have to hit this button right here. Now this button's job, all in all, is just to make any positive number negative and then to make any negative number positive. All right, so basically when I type in 27.8, I'm going to hit this button and it makes it negative 27.8. If I hit it again, it goes back to positive. But in this case, we want negative 27.8, so that's what we're going to have. In order to write any kind of negative number, you have to write the normal number first and then hit negative. So if I do negative 27.8, it won't work. So I have to type in the number first and then hit the negative button. All right. So we've got our negative 27.8, and because it's the first term in our series, we're going to hit enter. And now we're going to do 6.19 plus, and then we're going to do 26.2 plus, 26.2 plus. All right, so then we've combined all three of these terms, and our answer will be 4.59 times 10 to the 0. So all we have to do is say 4.59 times 10 to the 0. And even though this 0 seems like it should be extraneous, like we wouldn't need to write it, you do anyway. Even if it's times 10 to the 0 power, you still have to write the 0 up there. Okay, number 4 is a little bit complicated, and it's a little bit more difficult than the ones we went over before. So in this one, we're taking pi minus 6 minus 13 plus 15, right? So when I'm going through this, I need to know how to put in pi. Now, I could put in an estimation, right? 3.14, 3.14159265, or whatever. But it wouldn't be exact, right? And the calculator will do it much more exact than you do. Calculators, as a rule, are generally better at remembering long decimal strings than people normally are. So in this case, we're going to want the calculator to give us the number of pi. So we're going to have to learn a new new button for this. If you see right here, this COS button, COS, is located right above the enter button. And it also has a yellow insignia above it. And this insignia is the pi letter, right? The way we're going to want to get this pi is we're going to do yellow shift, and then we're going to hit the coast button. So then, boom, it spits out pi. Now, this may look like an estimation of just 3.14, right? But I can show it to you that it is 3.14159265, all those numbers, right? It gives us at least like 10 digits or something. So we know that pi has been input into our equation, and now we can continue on. So we've got our pi, and since it's the first term, we're going to hit enter. Now we're going to do 6 minus, and then we're going to do 13 minus, and then we're going to do 15 plus, right? And so negative 8.58 times 10 to the negative 1 should be our answer. So let's write it down. Negative 8.58 times 10 to the negative 1. Okay, number 5 looks a lot like question number 3 because it's just a bunch of terms, and the first term is also a negative number. So in this case, we're going to just do 386 and then hit the negative button. So we've got negative 386 and hit enter because it's the first term. Then we're going to do 1110 and then subtract, and then 922 subtract, and then 1030 subtract to get us our final answer. So in this case, 5 would just be negative 3.45 times 10 to the third. So We'll write that down, negative 3.45 times 10 to the third. And that would be our answer. Okay, question 6. Let's just dive right into it. I don't see anything different from any of the previous ones. It's got a couple more terms, but that should be it. And I think we should be able to handle it. So let's just dive right into it. 39.9, enter. And then 39.3 minus, and then 49.7 minus, and then 141 plus, and then 88.4 plus. So we got our answer, 1.80 times 10 to the 2, by just taking the term before it and using whatever sign is needed right to the left of it. So in the end, our answer is positive 1.80 times 10 to the 2. So 1.80 times 10 to the 2. And there you go. Question 7 is very similar to question 6. It's got 5 terms, and all that we have to do is just combine these terms in the ways that it tells us to, using the signs that it gives us. So all we're going to do is just 1.72 enter, 1.35 plus, 1.5 plus, 1.16 plus, and then 0.884 plus. So let's go to our calculator and just do that. So we've got 1.72 enter, and we hit enter because it's the first term. 1.35 plus, and then 1.5 plus, and then 1.16 plus, and then 0.884 plus. Now you can write 0.884, but in this case it's a little bit faster to just write point, because then you don't have to press the 0 button. So it'd save me maybe a second or two in the test. So in this case I would just put point. Anyway, whichever one you do, our answer is 6.61 times 10 to the 0 power. So let's write it out. As I was saying, your answer will be 6.61 times 10 to the 0 power. All right, so question number 8 has something a little bit different that we're going to be using. So if you can see, there's these parentheses right here, and it's saying everything inside this parentheses minus everything inside these parentheses. And if you remember from PEMDAS that you have to do the parentheses first, it's the P of PEMDAS, right? So for this case, what I like to do on questions that have parentheses, I like to treat each parentheses as its own little mini problem, okay? So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to treat everything inside here like it's its own problem, and then I'm going to do this problem, and then I'll treat this like it's its own little problem, do this problem, and then hit minus to subtract the two, okay? So what we're going to want to do is we're going to go to our first problem and hit 0.941, and then hit enter because it's the start of a problem, right? So 0.941, enter. Then we're going to do 3.89 plus, and then 3.68 minus. And so now we have the answer to our first little mini problem, okay? Now we're going to go over here and do the same thing with our second mini problem. Now we're going to go 1.88, enter, because it's the start of a new problem, a new mini problem. And then we're going to do 3.65 plus. So then we have our answer to our second mini problem. And as you can see, our answer to the first is on top, our answer to the second is on bottom. So as far as I'm concerned, we can just do minus, and it will subtract the two, which is what we need. So we can hit minus, and our answer is negative 4.38 times 10 to the 0. 0.38 times 10 to the 0 power. All right, question 9 is a little bit simpler than question 8. All it does is it introduces a new button to us on the calculator. This button is obviously the multiply button. So what we're going to want to do is just 81.6, enter, and then 33.9 times, and then 557 times. and that should get us our answer of 1.54 times 10 to the 6th. So 1.54 times 10 to the 6th. And that is our answer for question 9. And finally, we have the last question on the first page, question 10. And question 10 is pretty simple. It's just a little bit more complicated than question 9. It's got 4 terms instead of 3. So all we have to do is 147, enter, 507 times, and then 137 times, and then 1300 times. And that should get us our answer. (10 to the 10th power). And that should be our answer. All right, guys. So finally, the basics of this were to teach you how to turn on and turn off your calculator, to learn the memory clear function by hitting the on button, the mode button, and the RS button all at the same time, to switch your calculator into Science 2, and then finally the basics of page 1 and how all the questions on page 1 usually pan out. You should have a pretty good knowledge of how to use the 4-function calculator, plus, minus, multiply, and divide. And you should also be able to find the positive, negative button and the pi symbol up here. So if they asked, what is 45 plus 72? You could just do 45, enter, 72 plus, and then you could spit out your answer of 1.17 times 10 to the 2 power. And as always, guys, I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next video.